I did this series years ago. I think it was 2001, 2002, so Lindsay would have been about 14 or 15, Sammy would have been 3 or 4, Bailey would have been 1 or 2. So a 2-year-old, another infant, and a teenager. And I'm still standing. But I remember going through it, and this is funny because I gave the guys an acrostic to remember. And I don't know if it was the chapter 4 or this chapter, but I said, hey, guys, remember ESPN. And everybody went, oh, yeah, I can do that. Like Sports Center. ESPN. That you need to take care of your wife's emotional, spiritual, and physical needs. And I know, guys, don't go there yet, okay? Physical, like being with your spouse, being close to her, spending time with her. And now, that's the end, now you can think about sex. Okay? Emotional, spiritual, physical needs, now you can think about sex. And I have people who come up to me, X amount of years later, 15, 16 years later, ESPN, dude, yeah. It's like, wow, that's impressive. But I was thinking about how different this series has been for me now compared to when I was, in the battle of raising kids, especially at that age where they were little and older, and it was just really, really a struggle, a challenge, and a lot of time was spent with them. And looking at this passage now, 15 years later, and I'm older, and my kids have grown up a little bit, and I'm able to spend a lot more time with my wife. It has been much deeper this time than the last time. So that's kind of for me, just personal. And then the other thing, and this is, I'm going to say this because I've thought it for so many years now that I thought I should say it, and I'm nervous about it. So, but show me some grace here. I am so worried about the state of marriage. Not so much, well, kind of now, but I think in the future. I think of my kids, Lindsay, who's 30, Sam, who's 20, and Bailey, who's 18. And I think because of how the world is right now, and the access to sites of sexual things that are ungodly, and how it's affecting males and even females, and what intimacy is going to look like in the future for people. For people who love Jesus and want their spouse to be the sole provider of their sexual intimacy. And so I don't know why I wanted to start kind of in a serious place, because one thing happened the last time I did this series, that many years ago. I found out how many people were struggling in their marriage. Like they wouldn't say they were struggling until they saw the biblical, I don't know, when you hold the Bible out in front of people and say, look at what marriage can be like, and they realize that their marriage is so far from it, they were awakened to the idea that, oh my gosh, we're missing out on so much. And I don't want you to miss out on what God has for you, because it's so much deeper than just physical intimacy, an emotional and spiritual intimacy that God has placed in front of you to take hold of as married people is such a glorious gift. And I think we start to see this in this passage. I'm going to read through the passage first, and then we'll go back, we'll just kind of walk through it like we've been doing. There are some little phrases that you're going to go, huh? And we'll try to go through those and help you understand. We're going to go start in chapter 7. I'll read it through. Just, once again, if you want to close your eyes and just kind of, there's so much imagery here. He's speaking in the beginning. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Yeah, we'll explain that one. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. And then she takes over and says, it goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early to the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. And there I will give you my love. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. And this is kind of the end of it. It's in chapter 8. Oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outside, I would kiss you, and none would despise me. I'll just stop there. That last one is kind of one of my favorite passages. You'll understand eventually when we get to it. Now, I was flipping through Netflix recently, and I realized that one of my favorite movies in the world was on. It's Dead Poets Society. Yes, I'm old. But it was so impressionable to me when I was a young person that we went to Walt Disney and they had prop shops, where like movie props are sold, and I got a textbook with Welton Academy book cover on it, and so I held it up there, and it had a lot to do with the idea that this guy Robin Williams was telling these young kids to seize the day, and he started with a poem about gather ye rosebuds while ye may. It's a poem about young lovers. And when I think about this poetry in Song of Solomon, I think, you know what? I actually might like poetry because this is really, really good. Now, let's go through this and I'll try to understand. Sometimes I feel like I'm in English class when I'm reading a poem and I have no idea, and then the professor would open up and then start talking about it and what it all meant, and it's like, oh, I had no idea that's what that meant. And it gets good then. And hopefully this actually is the same way, that when you start to see what he's saying to her and what she's saying to him, you realize, oh my gosh, if my marriage could be like this, it would be way different than where it is now. He says, how beautiful are your feet in sandals. Now, how many of you ladies would say you have beautiful feet? Yeah, there's a confident woman. My wife just recently did this funny thing. She stuck her feet in a bag of goo, and 5 days later, all her skin came off. Have you seen one of these foot peels? Oh, it was so disgusting. But afterward, it was really cool because her feet were soft again. When I think we were dating or first married, the lady across the street from my parents' house, Dana would always walk out to the car and she would always have bare feet. And so the older lady from across the street said to her, she said, is Dana from the South? And I said, no, she's from Pemberville. which was from Elmore. Yeah, that was pretty much south. No, she just walked around bare feet all the time. But when that skin peel, just everything is all smooth and wonderful. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. Now, if you remember in the wedding night, he started at the top and worked his way down. If you were here a couple weeks ago, talked about her hair and her eyes and her lips and her all that. This is many years after that. And this guy knows a whole lot more about her. Your feet, nobody knew what your feet looked like. He kind of had a long thing, and it was all covered. And so this guy says about her, says, you know what, there's so much more than I know about you. This is what I realized about young love versus seasoned love. I loved my wife when I first met her. But I know her so much more now. I know things about her that absolutely no one else knows, that have been covered from everyone else. I know things about her that I love about her that no one even knows about. I think that's rich. Now, I don't know if you remember the passage in Isaiah, and this predates Isaiah a whole lot, but Isaiah says how lovely are the feet on the mountains of those who bring good news. The idea of someone who comes and presents good news to somebody. And Paul picks that up in Romans, and he says that's like the gospel. That's a beautiful person who can bring the gospel to somebody. Now, there are things about Dana spiritually and her way of loving people and sharing the gospel with them that I am just so drawn to. And it's amazing how she can reach people who I could never reach just because of her kindness and her grace. He goes on, "O noble daughter." Now, he's a king, and he talks to her like a queen, a princess. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, dudes. Your wife is the daughter of the Most High God. She is a princess. She is royalty. And the way you treat her, like I don't know how well you knew your father-in-law, or if he's still alive. My father-in-law passed away. He was a patrolman for the highway patrol. So I treated Dana with great respect and gentleness and kindness because I knew he did a background check on me. I was certain of it. Like he knew all the stuff, and I was like, and he was always packing. So I'm going to be nice. Now, imagine it's not just the daughter of a highway patrolman, but the daughter of the Most High God that you have with you. That's somebody that you really want to take care of, that you want to treat with respect and kindness and grace. Now, he goes on, "Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand." Now, once again, we are talking about fairly intimate places where no one else would know what this person looks like. Rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. You know what? I just want to go to the next verse. Because I think this is kind of intimate too, but it really shows a bit more of his craft as a poet. "Your navel is a rounded bowl," often translations say a goblet, "that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies." Now, if you say something like that to your wife, "Honey, your belly is a big heap of wheat," you're going to get kicked out of bed. You're going to be sleeping on the couch for a long time. But if you know your Hebrew seasons, your Jewish seasons, and as Solomon would have, and his wife would have known, the idea of mixed wine in the spring, when the spring rains came and the grape harvest was good, they would make wine. And in the fall, like what we're experiencing now, I don't know if you've been out in the country, we drive to Taylor University, and so we always see the combines kind of tearing down the wheat. In the fall, the wheat is the crop. And so when he talks about the idea of grapes or mixed wine and wheat being harvested, he's talking about how the blessing of God is coming to him through this woman. "I never lack wine. God has blessed me with the spring rains and the spring fruit. I never lack wheat because God has blessed me with you." And if Proverbs 19:14 says, "House and wealth are an inheritance from the Father, but a prudent wife is from the Lord." If you understand that your wife is a gift, a blessing from the Lord, that she is his daughter, that she is a spiritual being who can give great things to the kingdom, you begin to treat her slightly different, right? You treat her with respect and gentleness and kindness, and you're always speaking praise to her because she belongs not only to you, but to God. Now look at this. This is interesting. Song of Solomon, verse 3, chapter 7. "Now this is exactly what he said to her on their honeymoon. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle." He is still speaking to her in a sexual nature with tenderness, with kindness. Now, I'm just gonna press a little bit here, so I'm sorry if I'm on your toes. Ladies, think about your honeymoon, your wedding night. Think about early years of your marriage. and how your husband treated you. And now, maybe a number of years later, and how that maybe has changed. Maybe it's not as gentle and tender and kind as it was in the early days. Guys, here's the thing. There is never a point where you should stop treating your wife in a very tender and gracious and loving way. I was thinking about how this is just crushing my heart, I think, lately. Just the idea of what the industry that I talked about before will affect young men now and how they treat their wives, even in the beginning when they first relate to them and then when they first get married and then as they grow old with them. There should still be a tenderness and a graciousness and a kindness toward your wife that still takes her breath away. The kindness and grace that you show to her while you're together still makes her feel valued. I kid you not, I heard this from someone. He gets what he wants, he rolls over and goes to bed. Okay, this is not in any way how Solomon is treating his wife. He is still treating her with gentleness and kindness. This is what he says about her. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Now, there is no place in the scriptures that talks about an entire tower being made out of ivory. It was too expensive. It would cost too much to build it with ivory. And so what he's saying, you are of inestimable value and worth in my eyes. You are my most prized possession. The word segula is in the Old Testament where it talks about that everyone, when the king would win a battle and everyone was taking all the things from the defeated foe, the king would take one thing, he would call it his segula, and he would take that for his prized possession, the one thing that the king could have. And what he is saying to her is that you are my one prized possession. You are the most important thing in my life. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabim. Heshbon, I don't know if you remember, is like a little bit east of the Jordan. It was the capital city of the Moabites for a while, and for like bad kings who did not follow God. But it was a capital city. It was very busy. There were pools outside of the city gates, and they were like spas. They were like naturally fed springs where you would go, and this hot water, you could slide into the hot water and you could escape the place of busyness and struggle. And what he's saying to her is that when I look into your eyes, even though I've struggled with my whole day, I mean, everybody was on me at work, the ride home was horrible, those people cut me off and it was horrible, but when I got home and finally sat with you and looked into your eyes, I finally felt the peace of God rest on me. When I look into your eyes, I'm like at a retreat. I'm in a hot tub. Thank you for being the peace that comes to me. And then this one, your nose is like a tower of Lebanon which looks toward Damascus. I don't know. Man, honey, you got such a big nose. Like, what would that mean? He said this similar thing about the night of his honeymoon. And it talks about safety. Really, the Tower of Lebanon was up in northern Israel, and it looked over the place of Damascus, Syria now. And whenever that tower was up, you knew that you were safe. And so what he's saying to his wife is you created me a safety that I can be vulnerable with you like I can be vulnerable with no other person in my life. I could never share the things that I share with you with anyone. I don't know if you've ever been able to do that. I don't know how vulnerable guys are, but I'm kind of open with what I'm feeling usually, and I share it here. But there are things that only Dana knows about me, and I've shared them with her, and if I ever found out that she had shared that with another person, it would crush me. But I know that I'm safe with her. I can say some of the most difficult things to her about what's going on in my soul, and she holds them. She holds them as precious. Proverbs 31, you probably know this passage. An excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. The heart of her husband trusts in her. It is such a wonderful gift to find a wife who will listen to what's going on in your soul and just hold it for you and pray for you about it and hold it up before the Lord and allow him to change the circumstance and not try to work on it herself. See how this guy loves his wife? There's an intimacy and a connection there, emotionally, spiritually, that transforms them, that allows them, the couple, to be the most intimate experience of relationship that they have besides the Lord. The next passage, verse 5, your head crowns you like Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. Your head crowns you like Carmel. I don't know if you know what Carmel is. When I got to Israel for the first time, that is right where we went. We went to the Mount Carmel. It's along the Mediterranean Sea, and it overlooks the rest of Israel to the east. And it's probably one of the highest places, at least on the eastern side of Israel. And so when you go up there, you can literally look down on everything and all the places where the biblical narrative took place. It's an amazing place. But it's also the most beautiful place in Israel. Because it's close to the Mediterranean, the waters come, the clouds, and that gets rain more than most of the rest of the country. It's mostly desert, but these mountains are just fertile with trees and blossoms and beauty. It is rich and beautiful. And what he says to her is, you crown me with beauty. You are the one person who, when they see you, they realize that you're with me and they think more of me. I always think, when I'm here, it's like, oh, I know they're going to meet me, and they're probably going to think it's, one thing. And if they could just meet Dana, because she is sweet, and she's fun, and she laughs all the time, and people love her. If they just realize that she's with me, that makes me look better, way better. Because, it might be a puzzle, and I'm puzzled. I'm puzzled as to why she's with him, but if she's this good, he must be decent, right? An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. I tell you what, that was one thing that kind of came to me as I was going through this. To be reminded of all the things that Dana and I have gone through in our lives and how she has brought me through those times. 15 years ago, I had no idea who she was. I really didn't. And then we went through some struggles, and we went through raising kids, and I saw her for who she was before God and have a completely different understanding of who she is. She crowns me. And he says, how beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. So he has realized who she is. And he has spoken that to her, how enraptured he is with her. And it's not just about physical. In fact, by this point in their life, it's almost not at all physical, right? You've been through this, you've been the birth of a couple kids. We all look different now, but the depth and the deepening of our love for each other is so different now. It's not naturally spring, it's not fall either. We're not dying, but we're kind of in the middle of that. But he's still excited about her. This is kind of, we've gone from E, S, and P, okay? Now, that's where we're at in the passage. And now we're going to start moving toward the place where, okay, if a husband is able to build up and to encourage and to pour into his wife over the years, emotionally, spiritually, physically, my wife's love language is time And so spending time, like literally laying in bed next to her while she watches Golden Girls, while she plays Candy Crush. Guys, I know you're thinking, how on earth does he do that? Well, I'm very spiritual. I love Jesus, and I love my wife. And when every fiber in my being wants to go downstairs and watch football, I sit and watch. And there's no one on the planet compared to Maud. That's not her name on the show. That was her before that. What is her name? Yeah, Dorothy. There is no one on the planet more to curb your. She's like a cold shower. Right? So I fight through that. I battle through that. And then he says, your stature is like a palm tree and your breasts are like its clusters. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine and the scent of your breath like apples. It's amazing. He keeps on talking about fruit. Now, I don't know if you remember back in the on the honeymoon, he was talking about her as a garden, and all these things are in blossom. They're blooming, and so he's enjoying this newness of this. This is different, though. He's talking about actually fruit, vines, apples, dates, grapes. Their relationship together. Do I have to say sexual relationship, or are you guys following me? Their sexual relationship is nourishing to him. It builds him up. I don't, like, ladies, here's the deal. I will never understand how romance affects you, how speaking tenderly and kindly, and I don't say whining and dining you, but to treat you in such a way that brings you to a place where you feel loved, and I will never understand that. I'll try. I grew up with sisters. I have daughters, so I'm about as close as you can get. But, ladies, you will never understand how you minister to us. You just will never know how important that part of our relationship is to guys. I will lay hold of its fruit. And then he says, and your mouth is like the best wine. Now, there's a little space there, right? It's because she now takes over the verse, which is kind of cool. So he is talking about how he wants to be with his spouse, and they've been together for many years. And if you notice, like in the honeymoon, she was sort of passive. She wasn't really engaged in the whole thing. He talks a lot about her, and of course they enjoy each other, but she's a little more passive. Here, he starts the verse, your mouth is like the best wine, and she says, it goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. So she says, you know what? I love to be together with you. I love being with you. You have built me up. You have treated me kindly. You have treated me like the king's daughter, and now I will gladly be with you. She says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. The fact that he desires her is like, I love that about him. And then she takes over. And this is where usually I love it when Dana can come up and talk about this, because I get a little uncomfortable when I say all this stuff, but this is just the Bible, right? We're just reading the Bible. Come, my beloved, let us go into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early to the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom, and there I will give you my love. What is she doing? She's beckoning him to be with her. And then this is kind of a funny verse. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. The mandrakes give forth fragrance. You guys know, you talked about this, right, before, mandrakes? Mandrakes, if you know Genesis, Leah and Rachel are fighting over Jacob, and they talk about mandrakes. I want your mandrakes. Give me your mandrakes. Mandrakes were, the root of the mandrake looks kind of like a man. Google it. And so they were thought to be sort of like an aphrodisiac, and they were supposed to bring fertility and all that. And so when she talks about mandrakes, she's talking about, hey, the mandrakes, I can smell them. It's time. Here we go. And beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old. This is where I say something that I blush. This woman is creative. There are old ways that are wonderful, but she says, there are all choice fruits, new as well as old. There are new things which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. And at this point, Solomon is excited. Okay? Just wanted you to know that's where we're at in the story. Solomon's going, really? Okay. Can we have a discussion about what you guys sleep in? Because in the early days, it looked different than it did in the older days. I don't know if there's a place like in Elk Snout, Alaska, where they make a certain kind of robe that is like so thick, made out of sea cows, and you couldn't see through it if there was a solar flare behind it, but it's really comfortable. It's really comfortable, honey. Anyway, just talking. We'll go on. She is creative. I think the amazing thing is, I'll say this because I've said this before. It's amazing. You almost always make love in the dark. So whoever looks like whatever, it's all an equal playing field. I look as good as Brad Pitt in the dark. I do. That was a bad. Sorry about that. I was trying to, do to myself, not anybody else. But in the dark, I look great. And so it's just my creativity and my desire to please my wife and my active servanthood that makes me love my wife. And this is the end. Oh, God, let's get to the end. I'm sweating now. Oh, that you were a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outside, I would kiss you, and none would despise me. Here, I'll just end with this verse because I'm out of time. Have you ever been in the Middle East? Weird cultural thing. Husbands and wives don't touch each other outside in public. If you ever go to Israel, which I've been in Israel a number of times, you can go into the Jewish quarter, and you won't know who the husbands and wives are by the way they show affection. You'll only know who the families are, like brothers and sisters, dads and daughters and sons, and moms and daughters and sons. It's the familial family that is allowed to show affection. So what she says is, when she says, I wish you were my brother, because if you were my brother, I could go out in public and kiss you, but you're my husband, so I have to kind of keep my distance. I so long to be with you and show my affection to you, is what she's saying. And I would even do it in public. It's an amazing thing how the husband is so gracious and kind and tender and affirming and encouraging to his wife, and the wife is open. He ministers to her romance, and she ministers to him sexually. And the relationship deepens and grows over time. Now, our mission statement is basically raising up passionate disciples who love sacrificially. Wouldn't it be cool if we could say about our marriages here at One Hope that together we are passionate disciples who love our spouse sacrificially?